Today we have a short video on glycemic index made simple.
The carbohydrate is your body's preferred energy source. It's important to the body because it uses glucose, and your brain almost exclusively uses glucose as a fuel. It is estimated that 40 to 50% of the adult population have glucose intolerance to some extent as a result of modern day diets. In the 40s and 50s, they saw an increase in incidence of cardiovascular disease like myocardial infarctions or heart attacks. And thereby, those days, doctors and dietitians recommended that patients take low-fat and high carbohydrate diets. You have to take your calories from protein, fats, or carbohydrates, one or the other. It's a trade-off. Subsequently, numerous studies showed that low-fat, high-carbohydrate diets led to elevated insulin, high triglycerides, decreased HDL cholesterol or the good cholesterol, and other factors that increases the risk of coronary heart diseases, as well as degenerative diseases. Our ancestors ate carbohydrates in the form of beans, vegetables, and whole cereal grains with the fiber still intact. They ate sugars and fibrous fruits and berries. As a result, the food was digested and absorbed slowly. Blood sugar rise was gradual and prolonged, leading to a low glycemic response or a low GI. Today, modern men consume the carbohydrates from flours that are finely grounded, the bran separated from the white flour. As a result, it's more quickly digested and absorbed, resulting in a blood sugar rise after a meal that is higher and more prolonged, or a high GI response, which stimulates insulin production. And high levels of insulin is linked to heart disease and hypertension. There are two ways to categorize carbohydrates. Firstly, based on its chemical structure, simple or complex carbohydrates, or based on their overall effects on the blood sugar level, low GI or high GI response. This is a chemist's view of carbohydrates based on its chemical structure. Simple sugars like table sugar is a disaccharide. Of course, you have monosaccharides, or complex carbohydrates such as potatoes, rice, and other starches. They are polysaccharides. The widely held belief that starchy foods or complex carbohydrates produce a lower glucose response was found not to be true. Foods containing sugar showed quite low to moderate blood sugar responses, lower than foods like bread. What is the GI or glycemic index factor? It is a ranking of foods based on their immediate effect on blood sugar level. How is the GI factor measured? Well, you bring in 8 to 10 volunteers to consume 50 grams of carbohydrates equivalent. For instance, on day one, you do a baseline. The baseline will be 100. 50 grams of carbohydrate in terms of pure glucose powder. And you do a baseline. On the next day, you bring in the same 8 to 10 volunteers and you give them 50 grams of carbohydrates in terms of spaghetti. And then you measure their blood sugar response in the next several hours. On the third day, maybe a bread, and the fourth day, a different carbohydrate form. And then you compare the glucose response, and that's how you get the GI factor of any particular carbohydrate, with glucose as the baseline. A low GI food will be 55 and below. Intermediate is 55 to 70. High GI is more than 70. It's surprising that some breakfast cereals may have high GI. You'd be giving it to kids thinking that it's healthy, but it's high GI because it's made from refined flour. Factors which influence the GI of a food. Particle size. Grinding and milling of cereals reduces particle size and makes it easier for water to be absorbed. For example, cereal foods made from fine flours tend to have a higher GI, like fine flour versus wholemeal flour. With industrialization, we have, instead of eating whole grain, we have converted these grains to fine refined flour. GI index of some rice: basmati rice 58, brown rice 56, jasmine rice 109, glutinous rice 98. But in general, the more starchy or more sticky the rice is, the higher the GI. Because when it's starchy, it's gelatinized, it's absorbed water, it's swollen, and resulting in a bigger surface area for enzymes to quickly digest it and to be absorbed, and thereby raise your blood sugar level faster, hence a higher GI. Another factor which influences the GI of a food is the amylose to amylopectin ratio. The more amylose a food contains, the lower its rate of starch digestion. For example, basmati rice and legumes. Amylose is a straight chain, so it's slowly digested. Amylopectin is quickly digested. Amylopectin is branched. So obviously, if you have a cleaver or a knife, it's easy to chop off the arms and the trunk. So amylose, again, in summary, it's a straight molecule which is harder to digest than amylopectin, which has many branching points. Some noodles in comparison: instant noodle 46, vermicelli 35, cellophane 26. I mean, these are not hard and fast rules. Even with the bread, some people say, oh, you said this bread is low GI, high GI, but it's low GI. The idea is to go to the shelves, look at the GI of that particular food. So the whole exercise is to educate you on the GI factor, not to pinpoint any food being high or low GI, but to be aware of this concept. Bread, white bread 70, wholemeal bread maybe 55 or 70, depending on the manufacturer and depending on how refined the flour is that they use. Chapati 37. The best bread is something called Ezekiel bread from the Bible. You can find some of these breads in the market. They're whole grain bread, made from the whole grain rather than from refined flour or wholemeal flour. Legumes, baked beans, chickpeas, dal, egg. And again, you can search them on the internet. There's no hard and fast rule. But the whole idea is to be aware, and then when you go to the supermarket, just check out the GI index if it's available on the label of the product that you are considering to purchase, or maybe you're going to buy it anyway. So it's just an awareness. GI implications in weight control and obesity. A high GI food will trigger insulin release. Insulin stores fat, stores nutrients, stores everything. So it's a storing hormone, so to speak. So high GI food makes it hard for you to lose weight. Secondly, in diabetic control, in type 2 diabetes, you are producing insulin which the body is not responding to. It's called insulin resistance. And if your insulin is not working and you're taking a high GI meal every day, or more often than not, it's going to stress out your pancreas more than otherwise should be stressed. And thirdly, high GI foods are linked to heart disease and syndrome X because of high insulin resistance. Thank you. I hope that this has been helpful. The GI indices are not hard and fast rules. It's just a general awareness. It's more importantly that you evaluate each particular food by each particular manufacturer with regards to its GI index. Thank you.